Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome back here to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the 2024 Radical Americas Championship. My name is Ron Mons. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Michelle, and in the virtual production hall, we have our old buddy Joshua Wilkie. Now tonight we head to Barber Motorsports Park, and usually at this point in the show I would go and hype up this track and the great racing we have in store, but I feel like I'm not the one that's qualified to do this here tonight. Charles, this is your hometown track. You live about 15 minutes away from here, so it feels quite fitting to pass this off to you to give us a preview of the great racing we have in store tonight.
Wow, thanks, Ron. Yeah, this is my home track, and I love it. It's absolutely a fantastic place to go watch racing. I have a little grove of pine trees out there over by the S's, you know, just past the museum. Just get under the tree, pop out a chair, and sit back and watch. I've seen everything from, you know, Formula 4s, Radical Cup runs here frequently as a support race, as well as, you know, Indy cars, just, you know, just the fastest cars, you know, on the planet. So it's just a great place to watch racing. You know, it's, you know, sometimes we get out there and the weather's a little warm, so you get under the shade tree and just enjoy it. But I always enjoy going out there. As a matter of fact, we're just talking about it before the broadcast. Actually, Moto America, the, you know, American Superbike series was running this weekend there. Did not get a chance to see it, but maybe I'll be out there probably late August, early September for SRO GT America series, and the SCCA is also running there this year, so it'll be fun.
And just a couple of weeks ago, during the IndyCar festivities here for the Grand Prix of Alabama, the Alabama Children's Hospital Grand Prix of Alabama, I believe that was the name of the race title, don't quote me on that one there. The Radicals were actually running there. The Radical Cup ran here. The Radical Esports Cup here on iRacing just ran for the official broadcast here this past Friday, where our old buddy J.R. Gregory and Tom Dillon were on that broadcast, and that was a pretty exciting race. I'm sure this race here for the Radical Americas Championship is going to be no different. Now, it's a little bit hard for the viewers here on Apex Racing TV to get into a groove as to how these broadcasts go and how these races go, considering they're spread out. It's 12 rounds between the start of, it was all the way back in February when this season started, and we're stretching all the way in until October the 13th at the Nordschleife. So I think we'll just quickly go over the kind of format that we have here. We're currently in this 50-minute qualifying session, 50-minute practice session, I should say. Then we're going to be heading into a qualifying session in a few moments time, where the 15 drivers that we have on circuit are going to be chucking those cars around like there's no tomorrow. And then after that, we have a 15-minute race, then a 5-minute warm-up where we can take a little bit of a break and maybe have a chat with some drivers if they're willing to have a chat with us midway through the festivities here tonight. And then we have a 45-minute feature race to touch on later on this evening. So a whole lot of stuff in front of us, and we've already had a whole lot of action as well. We're 5 rounds into the season as we turn over here to this qualifying session. I think now that we're at the top of the qualifying session, it'll be a good idea to go over the championship point standings in both the pro category and the AM category. It's very close right now, and at the front of the pros, it's Ryan Odo, who's been viciously quick in these Radical SR10s. He's leading the championship, 86 points on the board. Not too far back is Franco Sanchez, a Peruvian driver, in P number 2. Then Lucas Vieira, the Brazilian, who took a hometown win last time out at Interlagos. He is currently in P number 3. They've got Eric Harmon and John Benlid running at the top 5 in the pro category. That is incredibly close at the front, only 8 points separating the two drivers at the very north end of the pro standings. Then moving on to AMS, it's Joel Jacklin that's leading at currently 77 points on the board. Charles Krasik in second. Cedric Oyahan there in P number 2. Only 3 points separating P2 and P3 in the amateur category. Manuel Solorzano, who took a double victory in both the sprint and the feature race not very long ago at Sebring. He's currently P4 in the standings, and Eddie Vocal in P number 5 in the AM category. Very close stuff all throughout both classes that we have here. This race is going to be, it's going to be a good one, I feel, even though it feels a little bit spread out. We are coming up to the halfway mark of this season. Round number 5 is tonight. So, Charles, do you think at a track like this, considering how far we are into the season, these drivers may try pushing the envelope a little bit, or do you think this track is so challenging that they may try and take it easy a little bit tonight?
Well, I go back to listening to the IndyCar drivers talk about this when they were here just a couple of weeks ago. They said this is the toughest race on their schedule for the entire season. It is the most demanding track that they have to encounter all year long. So, if you've got if you're in that 3rd, 4th, 5th place, I mean, you really don't have anything to lose. I mean, you're not you're going to try and go for the gold, right? So you'll try and go out and push the envelope and try and do some things, but obviously, risk versus reward is what you end up having to think about. And this is a very difficult track, so the risk is going to be high, but the reward could be equally good.
That is a very good point that you bring up there. Risk versus reward. At a track like this, there are some good overtaking opportunities that plenty of drivers are going to try and use. However, there's also plenty of opportunities to have some major drama go down. This is one of them, heading into the very fast turn 12 and 13 section there. We saw in the officials earlier on a couple days ago as Andy Vocal has a beautiful drift there, keeps it going in a straight line, nicely held there from the driver of the 34 car. Beautiful drift heading through turn number 14. I was going to mention how turns 12 and 13 were going to be tricky. Then he goes in, has that beautiful drift heading through turn 14. Elevation change, a big factor of this wonderful track, and also not a whole lot of forgiving runoff area as well. It's old school, whereby we have no real asphalt runoff to speak of. It's more of a grass and gravel affair here, so risk versus reward is going to be a huge factor in the racing that we have in store for us tonight. But I mentioned there, unforgiving runoff area. Mistakes may be aplenty here. Charles, are you expecting a race more of attrition tonight, or do you think these drivers are going to play it nice and safe?
I think there's a couple spots that are tricky that if you get caught out, you're going to end up wrecking your car. And it's usually coming out of 3 over the crest into 4. The car gets very light, makes it very difficult to control if you're offline. You hit the curbs on either side, you end up taking yourself into the Armco. But for the most part, it's pretty recoverable. I mean, there's, like I said, there's only a couple spots on there that if you could get yourself in trouble, but there's, most of the track is pretty well designed to allow you to get the car slowed down and get it back on the track with, just a loss of time and no loss of body paint or paint on the car or sheet metal. So hopefully we'll have a really good race, and we'll keep all the cars on the track.
Yeah, fingers crossed that we have a fantastic show to broadcast here on Apex Racing TV tonight. We had a beautiful race here for the officials earlier on this past week, this past Friday, in fact. And I think we also had a pretty good show during the European Championship as well, close finish in that series as well. Of course, Charles and I weren't aware of that because we were on the Weekend Warriors broadcast here this afternoon, our third broadcast on the evening. So fingers crossed my voice doesn't give out like it did on broadcast this past Tuesday. I sounded like a rusty gate creaking in the wind towards the end of that one. So fingers crossed we don't have a repeat here tonight. So we're halfway through this qualifying section right now. It's Lucas Vieira, the Brazilian driver, at the front at a 117.746. And these Radical SR10s are stunningly quick. You know, usually you expect to see a car like this in Radical. To most people, the name Radical, really, you just think of track day cars and all that stuff, but Radical makes some pretty freaking fast race cars, if I do say so myself. The Radical SR10, there's been an evolution of this car, because when I first did the official broadcast starting at Season 1 of 2023, merging into Season 2, was actually the last time we had a official race here at Barber Motorsports Park. The car wasn't the easiest car to handle in the world. There's a lot of stuff surrounding it. I remember driving that car, and it felt very much akin to like a 1950s or even like a 1930s Formula One car. It was not an ideal race car to try and haul around the racetrack, particularly at speed. But ever since then, the Radical Sim Racing community, it's been the community that's helped this car out quite a lot, along with the people working behind the scenes at iRacing, to turn this car into the weapon that it is. It is blisteringly quick, puts on some great racing as well. These cars are slipstream monsters week in and week out, and it's really been that case all throughout really every season ever since I joined the Radicals. These cars are extremely slipstream powerful. It's very similar to what we see from the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors that Charles and I cover quite a lot here on Apex Racing TV. But I brought up there a few moments ago about how fast, how stunningly quick these Radical SR10s are. And this past year for the IndyCar race, the pole sitter Scott McLaughlin was only at a 105.9. So the fact these Radical SR10s running Ford EcoBoost engines are only about 12 seconds slower than IndyCar around here shows how surprisingly quick, it must be said, these Radical SR10s are.
Yeah, for sure. These cars are very, very light, very nimble. Lots, you know, they don't have like tons of horsepower, but the power to weight ratio is just fantastic in these, and they handle really, really well. And that's a good thing. You know, I kind of equate what you're talking about with the SR10 and the issues that it had when it was first released to iRacing, with iRacing's I guess fantasy car, the IR1. The open wheel V10 monster that iRacing developed. The difference is you've got a community of car people that actually drive this car and race it in real life, and know how the car is supposed to perform, unlike the other car, which obviously is not real. So it took them a long time to get that car right. It only took them, you know, a season or so to get this one dialed in. And I think from what I've heard, everybody just really loves driving it. So, you know, the community has done its job, what it's supposed to be doing, and helping iRacing develop something that it will enjoy racing.
I gotta bring up one more point with the community as well. Ever since I retired from the Radical official broadcast that I'd been on for about a year, firstly, after I told the Radical community that I was stepping away from those broadcasts, the response I got from many of the heavy hitters and the fantastic Radical SR10 drivers from those Friday official broadcasts that were my broadcasting home ever since I started here on Apex Racing TV. It was a lot of support that I got from them. It was fantastic to see a wonderful community of racers, all dedicated to a very fast race car that they like chucking around virtual racetracks. And even here with some of my newer ventures here on the Radical America series, I love this car. And actually, I just got my iRacing C-Class license, which will allow me to run in the Radical Esports Cups. I broke that news in the Radical Discord server the other day. Once I got the job done and finally got that license promotion, the fast track promotion as well, well to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on top of that news. James Barry, who's a driver in the European Championship, and the officials said he gave me the blue flag emoji right after I said that I was going to be running in those broadcasts. So at least I have a sense of humor as well. You'll love to see it. So I think we're coming toward the end of this qualifying session right now. Not a whole lot of time left to go. Only 15 seconds left to go here. Lucas Vieira is still at the front, set a blisteringly quick lap time, a 1:17.51 earlier, and he has not a big gap between himself and Ryan Odo in P number 2. I'm expecting a repeat of what we saw at Interlagos a couple of weeks ago for the previous round here of this season. The checkered flag has been after this qualifying session, and we're going to get the starting grid for you in just a couple of moments' time from this 15-minute feature, which is going to be quite hectic here this evening. Lucas Vieira in the number 171 car is going to lead them from the starting grid. Ryan Odo in P2, Franco Sanchez in P3, Ryland Richard in P number 4. That's Sean Benelid in 5th, Hunter Reeve in 6th, Chris Heidi in 7th, Jimbo Pfeiffer there, I probably butchered that pronunciation, he's in P number 8 alongside David Unger there in P9. Adrian Fernandez will round out your top 10. Then Tyler Vickery in 11th, Cedric Oyahan there in P number 12, and we'll look through the other final few cars we have left on the grid. We've got Charles Krasik, Andy Vogel, Mateus Moraes, and Bruno Abrantes are going to be running at the 16-car grid that we have from this feature race. Now, one thing that's always a unique feature when it comes to these radicals, whether it be in the official broadcast or whether it be here for the America's Championship and the European Championship as well, standing starts. Don't have a rolling start, you have standing starts. You're gonna have to deal with cold, very cold tires heading into turn number 1. The cold tires and the cold brakes are usually so difficult to manage here in these radical SR10s. We'll just have to wait and see how these drivers attack this first lap and some of the challenging corners that they'll have to deal with very early on. So we're just waiting for a few more cars to line up here on the starting grid. It's going to be a somewhat lengthy run before they head into turn number 1, which is usually just a lift and coast affair. We'll see if drivers take it easy or if they give it 100% here at the very start of the race. Riding on board with Lucas Vieira, his pole sitter, the lights are out, the drivers are on their way into turn number 1, and Vieira gets a fantastic start. Can't say the same about Odo. He's now fighting for his life to remain in P number 2 with some drivers locking up, shuffling around, and even mowing some grass, heading through turn number 1. But it's our pole sitter Vieira leading them, about to head through turn number 4. Challenging corner for sure, says some drivers going side by side through that section very early on into this race. 15 minutes, only 15 minutes, so we're going to see a lot of drivers give it absolute hell. I saw some big puffs of smoke farther in the back, so I think we may have already lost a driver. I'll take a look at my live timing screen. I think we may have gone away with that. I will say Bruno Abrantes and Mateus Moraes did not take the stars. We see some racing here involving Adrian Fernandez and P number 9, and that was very close with the drivers right in front of him. The drivers of Pfeiffer and Hunter Reeve very close, heading through the turn 7, 8, and 9 chicane. But surprisingly clean on this first lap so far, Charles.
Yeah, it's a good start by everybody. You managed to get the cars rolling. You know, Odo was a little slow off the line, as we see a car wide coming through 13 and 14 there. That's Vogel. That's one of the spots we're going to have to watch out for. It's real easy to get offline there and help the grounds crew out just a little bit, getting that cleaned up. But yeah, it was a good start by everybody. As we see, there's the other spot right there coming out of the S's. You have a tendency, if you have to lift a little bit, I believe, at least on the starting lap. With cold tires, yeah, he's just a little bit offline all the way around, so he'll have to just get himself reset.
He hit that curb on the inside of turn number 13, and that's something I'm really shocked that we haven't mentioned so far in this broadcast, as we have side-by-side action with Oyahan and Unger heading their way into Charlotte's Web of turn number 5. That's a big lockup farther up the road for Vickery. He's going to be dropping back like a rock, stuck in the gravel trap. Thankfully, he is back rolling. Not ideal for Tyler Vickery heading into the hairpin of turn number 5, but that was very close with Oyahan and Unger, and Oyahan has actually lost out quite a lot in that as well. well, as he just got side by side, made contact there with, and that was Unger that he made contact with heading through the chicane. So already seeing some drivers break out the fisticuffs, break out the carbon fiber horn here in this Radical SR10 Radical Americas race. We have to take a look at a replay to see what in the world happened there. I think that was just some drivers fighting for the same piece of real estate in a very narrow section of the race course.
Yeah, it was a little bit slow coming through there, and I think he backed out in just a little more than Unger maybe expected there. Contact May. I did hear Unger come on the radio and give the "I'm sorry," to just like, look, sorry about that. Did not realize that was going to happen. But this is a Museum Corner, very, very tricky little chicane, and you have to just basically eat that curb on the left side to try and get the line coming through the right-hander. If you miss it, or if you're a little slow through there, that's what happens.
Not an ideal start there for David Unger. He's going to have to pit to repair that damage, which coming into the pits in a 15-minute race is essentially a death sentence here in these Radical Americas sprint races. We're following Jimbo Pfeiffer here in the 00 car. He's running quite nicely, currently in P number 7. And looking at my live timing screen and seeing some of the storylines that have developed so far, I will say Abrantes and Marias didn't even take the start, so they are out of it. They're out of the session. We will not be seeing them continue. So 14 cars taking the start here, 14 cars still out on track, and I think Ryan Odo had a big off here. He's currently down in P number 8, so we're going to take a look at a replay to see what happened to the man that started this race in second, was still running in second, heading his way around the final corner, hits it, hits the grass there, hits that curb, hits that inside wall as well. A very easy mistake to make that we've seen in real life. Ryan Odo, no different.
Yeah, that's another one of those. This is a very technical track. That's the reason the IndyCar guys talk about its level of difficulty. And 14, the last corner is no exception. If you come out, if you just too fast coming out, you get off in the grass there, and if you just catch that curb wrong, you're around. So that probably won't be the last time we see that.
I think I was going to mention this earlier before we saw that multi-car schmozzle heading through the museum corner, but these curbs are killer here at Barber Motorsports Park. I could probably best describe them as urban plateaus more than curbs. They are very high, and we've seen some drivers already in this race get affected by them. I believe it was I forget who exactly it was that went off the track. I think it may have been Andy Vocal, the one that went off the track on lap 1 heading through turn number 13. He hit that inside curb and just shot him off the race course. We saw a similar moment like that with Felix Samoes during the Friday official broadcast here on Apex Racing TV on the final lap of the race, running solidly inside the top 10. He hit the inside curb of turn number 12 that we see Tyler Vickery go through right now. Hit that curb and just sent him off the track like a pinball. So not ideal if you have a mistake like that heading through this section. Thankfully, a whole lot of grass runoff, so it's a little bit unlikely if you hit one of the barriers surrounding this racetrack, but still, any sort of mistake in these 15-minute sprint races are going to be a killer. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a couple of spots, you talked about that, the curbs, turn 1, the inside curb there, also another one of those that you want to avoid. And there's really, as far as the track itself goes, there's really only one spot, and I'm surprised we haven't seen it yet. I think I saw it in qualifying, but it is the hairpin. There's a little trick to the hairpin there that the ground, when it rains, if you're on the outside there of coming out of that apex, it anti-cambers because that's where the water drains. And so you have a tendency to lose the rear of the car there if you get back on the throttle a little too hard. Because the track just kind of stops helping you. As you see that was too much curb there coming through Museum Corner. You have to take it with your left side tires, but you can't just kind of jump it like that, or you end up potentially losing a spot here. Ohian with a fantastic bunny hop heading his way through Museum Corner, and who was that? I think that was Vickery, who nearly crashed on a straightaway there heading into turn number 12. I think he tried to take avoiding action, nearly rear-ended Fernandez heading into turn number 12, and got all sorts of sideways. We may have to take a look at a replay to see that code brown moment for Tyler Vickery heading through the back end of the circuit. Lots of movers and shakers so far. I will say, despite having a mistake early on, Andy Vogel is the highest position gainer. We'll touch on that in a little bit, but this was Tyler Vickery. He tried to go side by side with Ohian heading through that section, and we'll see Was there a little bit of what in the world happened there? I think Tyler Vickery may have gotten scared by Adrian Fernandez trying to pull an overtake off on him, heading down that back straightaway. That was very strange.
Yeah, it was very strange. I think he just pulled over because he was going to let him go, because obviously when they went, they see a car wide there.
Odo.
That's another Odo. Was that Odo? And just
Odo.
That's not a place you want to try and make a pass, just to be honest. And I think Odo figured that out. So yeah, it's we go back to that other one, I think he just moved over to try and let him go. It was slow after they had tried to go too wide through the S's, and I think he maybe caught grass. Miscommunication on braking there between Odo and the car in front, Pfeiffer.
Yeah, that was nearly two Radical SR10s merging into one. That would have been a very big hit if Ryan Odo didn't back out of that. There's a pretty big lockup too. I'm sure the front tires on that SR10 are going to resemble rectangles more than anything else. Hunter Reeve, I think he was one of the cars involved in that, is now running in P number 6. So as I mentioned earlier on, before we saw a whole lot of drama break out, we've had some movers and shakers so far. Looking through, you've got Ryan Odo, who's now make his way back into P number 7 right now, down 5 positions from where he started. Not ideal for the American driver. And one thing with the future race we have coming up as well, you don't have a reverse grid or anything like that, so where you finish in this race is where you're going to be starting later on this evening. So Ryan Odo trying to improve his results here. We're over halfway through this 15-minute affair, so we're going to see Ryan Odo hopefully try and claw up through the field for his own sake. And you can see the fastest top speed graphic. Hunter Reeve right in front of this man. Ryan Odo is at a 155-mile-an-hour top speed. That is very fast. Again, these Radical SR10s absolutely hauling the mail. The draft probably helping him out a little bit there. The draft is usually quite key in these races, even at a track like this, which doesn't have any disproportionately long straightaways. Hunter Reeve with a very fast race car right behind him, and a very fast race car under him right now, currently in P number 6.
Yeah, so just, kind of maintaining his position, is trying to just stay out of trouble. Obviously, Odo's trying to make up some of that time that he lost from going off the track. So we'll see if he can make his way around Reeve or not before the end of this race. I guess the good thing is he may end up still maybe in P6, P5, P6, P7, but that 15-second or so gap that he's going to have up to Vieira is gone. We'll start back fresh, and he'll get a chance to make his way up through 2 or 3 positions and challenge back for the win in the next race.
Well, speaking of moving up positions, Andy Vocal in P9, he had that off earlier on in the race, but I guess that curb black must have given him some, maybe some nitrous in that SR10, because he's currently up 5 spots. Very nice result so far from the AM driver. Odo trying to get the move done, heading into turn number 12. That is a bold move, but he managed to pull it off there on Reeve, heading through that very fast and challenging section of the race course. Nicely done from Ryan Odo to get that move done clean. He has a very dramatic race thus far. Had that moment heading around that final corner. Looked like he pretty much ran that exact line. You can see the tire marks on the outside of that turn. That incident, talking about that off that Ryan Odo had earlier on in the race, I'm shocked we didn't really talk about that earlier, because that is a hard corner to get right. And right as I say that, I believe that's Krasik, I think, going off there farther in the back. No, that's Fernandez. Got sideways heading through that section and had a tank slapper into that outside Armco barrier. So right as I say that, I'm surprised that no more drivers have been called out by the very challenging turn 16 here. We see another one bite the dust heading through there.
Yep, just exactly the same thing. Is just got wide. He actually went way wide, and some bumps out there, and then kind of scraped the wall. You can see the paint being removed off the right-hand side of the car. Could have been worse. Did not turn into one of the barriers, so it was just a side swipe, and he should be able to finish that without too much of a loss of time.
These Radical SR10s are very aero sensitive, however, with the position that Fernandez is in right now. The closest car to him in terms of right behind is Unger, however, he's quite a long ways back. Tyler Vickery looking to get a move done to move inside the top 10, not close enough, heading through turns 12 and 13, and nearly going off the track. Nice save from Tyler Vickery. Yet again, another fantastic save from the driver of the number 24 car, heading through, I think it was the same corner as we saw him earlier on this evening, heading through turn number 14. We're going to take a look at a replay of what nearly was a move to move inside the top 10, what ended up being a fantastic save for Tyler Vickery. Hit that inside curve of turn 13, runs a little bit wide, and I think this is maybe earlier on here, so this was before that massive slide. However, that's how you go through that section properly. That's how you go through that section without needing a change of underwear after that. Tyler Vickery hoping to have some more moments like that instead of the moment he just had heading through 14 last time by.
Yeah, absolutely. That's turn 12, 13, 14. The elevation change, you have to have a really strong line going through there. You're trying to carry as much pace as you can. But then the car gets light and you're right on the edge of the track, and it just takes, a couple inches off and you're in the grass, and you're having to collect the car back up before the Armco collects you. So great job by Vickery to save it that last time by.
A driver who's putting on a fantastic show right now, and a boring show, it must be said, is Lucas Vieira, our leader. We haven't really talked about him, but I think he is going to be taking the white flag this time by. You can see him heading through Charlotte's Web of turn number 5 right there, the hairpin, which we may see used as an overtaking opportunity in the first lap of the feature event that we have coming up in just a couple of moments time. But Lucas Vieira has extended that gap over himself and Franco Sanchez to be close to 7 seconds right now. So Lucas Vieira just hitting his marks properly. He is I think he's probably if not the fastest drivers here in the Radical Americas Championship. It's been a topsy-turvy season thus far. We've seen drivers get involved in incidents, have mistakes as well. Vieira was locked steady in a great fight between himself and another driver whose name I can't remember from Interlagos a few weeks ago. However, got involved in an incident during that feature race, had to drop all the way to the back. Well, it's actually during the sprint race where that incident happened. Then he had to start all the way at the tail end of the field for the feature, but Lucas Vieira cut through it like a hot knife through butter and went on to win the feature there at Interlagos in front of his hometown virtual crowd there at that wonderful circuit down in Sao Paulo. We are on a white flag lap. Ryland Richard, who we haven't really talked about in the number 69 car, is currently running in the last podium position. John Bentlett a little bit farther back there. Ryland Richard having a quiet show, it must be said, has no cars within about 3 seconds of him. So Ryland Richard, he may be on his phone by now. I wouldn't necessarily blame the guy if he was very relaxed with how things have gone this evening for him. Tyler Vickery still in a nice fight between himself and Ohio here for that final top 10 spot. I think we may see this breakout here, and we may see a hard fight towards the very end of this race. White flag, you want to try and battle for every single position you can. Points matter here, so we may see an overly opportunistic move, we may see a bold move, we may see some contact as well. That nearly came to blows heading out of turn number 5. That would have been a very strange place to make contact, but side by side, nearly side by side, heading into the museum corner, and Vickery with a massive snap mid-corner. Lucas Vieira, meanwhile, is taking the checkered flag to win the sprint race here tonight, and Franco Sanchez is rounding his way down that start-finish straightaway. He finishes in P2, Ryland Richard in P3. Vickery and Ohio side-by-side heading through turn number 12. Now Vickery's going to have that inside line, hitting that curb massively, though. They make a little bit of contact heading through that section, heading through 14 now, side-by-side, 15 now, still side-by-side. Vickery is going to clear him, so he's really going to have to focus on this exit coming through turn number 16 now, and then that top 10 is his. Tyler Vickery rounds out your top 10 from a surprisingly tame, it must be said, sprint race here for the Radical Americas Championship. Not a whole lot of incidents, and the drivers keeping it at bay there, Charles. Yeah,
it was a really good race, and clean for the most part. Had a couple of incidents, but I think everybody did a really good job, and we'll see what the next race holds. But I think Odo coming from P5 to start the next race, he's going to have a little bit of work to do before he can get up there with Vieira and Sanchez, but I think that might be a nice 3-car battle for the next race.
I didn't even really notice that. Ryan Odo breaking into the top 5 in the dying stages of the race, closed up and managed to overtake Chris Handy to move into that top 5 spot. Nicely done. And Charles Krasik, the last car to take the checkered flag here. I think we'll touch on the results here from this sprint race from the Radical Americas Championship at Barber Motorsports Park. That is, I apologize to any arachnophobes watching this stream here, seeing Charlotte the Spider. I think that's the Spider's name on the outside of turn number 5. Lucas Vieira ends up winning at 7.5 seconds over Franco Sanchez there in P number 2. Rylan Richard will round out your podium in 3rd. Then Sean Benelid in 4th. Ryan Odo with a fantastic recovery drive ends up in P number 5. Chris Hiddy there in P number 6. Hunter Reeve in 7th, Jimbo Pfeffer there in P number 8 as we get reloaded here. Andy Vogel with a nice drive up 5 positions from where he started this race, ends up in P9, and Tyler Vickery with a dramatic and hard-earned top 10 ends up in P number 10.
Yeah, Cedric Oayan in P11, Adrian Fernandez in 12th, David Unger in 13th, Matthew Marai in 14th, Charles Krasik in 15th, and David Unger 13th, Charles Krasik 14th, Matthew Marai and Bruno Brontes did not take the start, so they'll finish 15th and 16th.
So those are the results. The 14 cars that ended up taking the start all took the checkered flag on the lead lap. I'm sure with this 45-minute race that we have coming up here in just a couple of moments' time, it is not going to be the same case with that one. We are in a warm-up session right now, so we have a little bit of time to decompress. Maybe this is a calm before the storm, before all hell breaks loose for that 45-minute race that we have coming up in just a couple of moments' time. I see, is Tyler Vickery out on track? Because I see him in the general here on Apex Racing TV on our Discord server. So I'm wondering if we could possibly drag him in here for a quick little chat. I think we have 3 minutes here, so we'll drag him in here real quick. And Charles, would you like to have a chat with Tyler Vickery, who had a very dramatic sprint race here this evening?
Yeah. Hey Tyler, this is Charles up in the broadcast booth. How did the race go for you today?
It was up and down, to say the least. Yeah, I had a good start, but me trying to stay as clean as I can, because Barber's not one of my favorite tracks. Just, I like the technicality, but it's just, if I make too many mistakes, it escalates. And I got to the point I felt like I was running quicker than Cedric, but it was to a point where I was like, I wanted to keep the racecraft as much as I could. Granted, I scared myself half to death a few times on the fast left-right hander, and then I backed off and didn't realize Cedric was backing off too, and then here comes Adrian out of nowhere and scaring me. So that's I don't know if you caught that, but when I dove off to the right, that was just me scaring, because I myself could look up in the mirror, and here's Adrian out of nowhere where he was like a second back, and then me and Cedric checked up in the corner trying to be clean for each other, and then all of a sudden I'm like just scaring myself half to death.
As a matter of fact, we did catch that. So yeah,
lovely.
we thought the same thing. So I was going to ask you. You were talking about the technical aspect of the track, and you mentioned that what they call the S's, that fast left right back on the back side of the track. Is that the most difficult for you? We saw a lot of cars having issues with the first chicane, what we call Museum Corner. Is that, or is there another part of the track that you just kind of struggle with?
I mean, I think for me, it's more of that last fast left right hander, because Museum Chicane for me is actually good. I love that corner, especially with the downhill chicane. I think my one issue is I still have to mess around with the brake bias, because there's times I'm getting on. I feel like I'm trying to be light on the brakes, but I'm still getting a little too much brakes as soon as I get in the corner. And there's a few times I felt the car start to snap a little bit on me. I love that one, but the last fast left right hander going uphill, that one I know gets me, because there's times if I hit it wrong, I just get myself too much momentum and I throw myself into the grass, which I think Cedric and I did that on one lap, and we both went wide into the grass. How we both didn't crash then, I don't know how.
I understand. Well, the warm-up's over, the race is getting ready to start, so we'll let you get back to it. Good luck in the second race.
Yeah, it's just gonna have to. I'm just gonna have to run consistent lap times for this one. Just try to do what I can at this point.
That's all you can do sometimes. All right, thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Charles.
Look, that is Tyler Vickery. Very dramatic race, it must be said. And as Charles said, the warm-up session is over, so we're going to get the grid for you now. It's Lucas Vieira starting this race from the pole. Franco Sanchez in P2, Ryland Richard in P3, John Benelid in P number 4, Ryan Odo in 5th. Chris Heide, who's actually in the AM category, he's going to be starting this race in P6, Hunter Reeve in 7th, Jimbo Pfeiffer there in P number 8, Andy Vogel in 9th, Tyler Vickery, who just had a chat with, in P number 10, then Cedric Oyahan in P number 11, Adrian Fernandez in 12th, and then looking at the final grid of drivers that are actually going to be taking this start, we have David Unger, the Australian, and Charles Krasik there in P14. It's nice to see an Australian driver running in the Radical Americas Championships, I guess. I don't know, maybe there's a new deal that I haven't heard of where the United States government has bought Australia. That would be news to me, but I think before we draw some sort of geopolitical discussion, we'll talk about this race. We didn't see a whole lot of drama in that sprint race. Will the feature be different? We have a pit stop to contend with. We'll just have to wait and see. The lights are on, the drivers are on their way into turn number 1. It was a slow reaction time, it must be said, from Lucas Vieira, but he manages a wheel spin like a charm, and he's going to be leading them heading into turn number 1. Yet again, that's Ryan Odo, all kinds of sideways heading through turn number 1, and that's a big off there. Who was that? That pinged the driver off the road. We'll take a look. Who was that? That was John Benelid, the one that was the punter. And who was the puntee? I believe that was Cedric Oyahan, the one that got sent off the road there. So that is a horrible start for both of those drivers. It's good for these drivers running in the top 3 right now. Lucas Vieira, Franco Sanchez, and Ryland Richard are pulling away. Now we've got a battle between Sanchez and Richard heading into the museum chicane right now. Pretty close between the two of them heading through that very challenging section where it feels like you're scrubbing off speed and would like to drag an anchor through asphalt to try and slow down as much as you can. But I said we were expecting a little bit more drama here in this race, and I think we got right off the bat there, Charles.
Yeah, I think it looked like they tried to make it 3 wide, maybe 4 wide coming through turn 1 with cold tires, cold brakes, and it just didn't work out. Obviously, we see Odo there is running in 6th. He may have some damage. I think he was involved in the early part of that and was almost involved in the late part of it if we get the replay here from Josh. They're just coming down, and it's like they're just trying to go, just Odo, just caught the inside. You got to be careful of that inside curve at turn 1. Just kicked the car out back into the track and collected Benelid, I believe, was who that was, and sent him through the grass, and just no way to get the car stopped in time and back onto the track, and collects Oyan.
Ryan Odo is a viciously quick driver here in this series, and he's trying to put that on full display, moving back up into the top 5. Odo, again, viciously quick, but this man has either been hit by falling anvils or shows the consistency of expired mayonnaise at times. We saw not very long ago, actually, your first broadcast here for this series, Charles, at Sebring when he got caught out by lap traffic. That hurt him quite a lot when he was on track to do 2 dominant wins that evening, and here, another bit of bad luck hits him at the very start, a little bit of contact at the very beginning, and that is a massive spin, a very big slide there. That was Tyler Vickery, who was all sorts of sideways heading through the hairpin of turn number 5, and this, I think, is that was Pfeiffer's view of that smoke screen that Tyler Vickery put on. Here's a better angle of it, and it was actually synchronized spinning from those 2 drivers.
Yeah, and that's the thing about turn 5. I've seen a lot of, and this happens in real life, is turn 5, like I said, the water kind of drains from that section of the track into that little cutoff for the course change. So it's on the back half of that hairpin, and the track just kind of falls away from you, so you don't get the support that you had coming into the corner that you have going out. And I've seen everything from Formula 4s to Indy cars spinning in there. So you have to be very careful on the back half of that, or you'll do exactly what Vickery did and just kind of lose the rear end and have to collect the car.
I think Tyler Vickery is out of it tonight, so we already have our first retirement from this feature race, already down to 13 cars as it stands at the moment. And I think we're going to take a look at another replay. This is Charles Krasik at the very beginning of this race, and I think this was his view. We're going to find his view of the lap 1, turn 1 schmozzles that were going on. Sadly, my replay is a teeny tiny bit glitched out here, so I'm just... Yep. I think that may have been just Krasik cutting his way through the field like a hot knife through butter. Charles, did you see that?
I think that's exactly what I saw, and I'm having the same issue you were. But obviously we can see that Krasik is already up 4 positions, so he's having a good start to the race. Let's see if he can continue on and maybe pick up a few more spots. He's right behind Pfeiffer now.
Well, thankfully, the power of YouTube live streaming being about 20 to 30 seconds delayed, or actually, I just got a chance to take a look at a replay to see him cutting his way through the field. Of course, that incident there farther up the road definitely helped out his case when it came to making up those positions. However, one of the drivers involved in that being Ryan Odo, is making his way up through the field as well, up 1 spot from where he started this race, but really, compared to how he was not very long ago after that incident at the very start, he is putting on a pretty good show right now, only 0.8 of a second behind Franco Sanchez in P number 2. Lucas Vieira at this point, he is just absolutely checked out, is continuing to pull away, and I think we're going to take a look at another angle of this first lap incident of Odo, his massive snap heading through the corner, overcooked it, maybe locked the rears there, heading into turn number 1. That was big air. Oh man, Ben Lidd got the big air on the grass on the inside of turn number 2, and it just sent him. He had nowhere to go. There was an unfortunate accident, it must be said. Avoidable if Odo didn't have that big snap midway through that corner, but just unfortunate all around.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, he kind of locked up, caught the inside curb. And Ben Lidd, obviously, it's kind of hard to brake or steer when your wheels aren't touching the ground. So catching the air through there in the grass, and just, really not anything you can do about it. It is just an unfortunate racing deal, as we see Odo working to the outside here going into 5. He's going to make that move around the 69 car there of Heidi. And he's at least even with them as they come down the second stretch there. Coming down into Museum Corner, has the inside line, takes a little bit of that right-hand curb over the left-hand curb. Nice pass. Obviously, I think Heidi gave him a little bit of help there, kind of backed out a little bit to make that easy for both of them, and not cost either one even any more extra time than was necessary.
That was a nice move that he put on Ryland Richard there, but with that battling that they did, it's allowed Franco Sanchez, who has a 3.7 second gap behind this man, Lucas Vieira, who once again is checking out from this feature race. The gap between Sanchez and Odo has increased as well. Odo 5.3 seconds back of our leader Vieira. Sanchez, meanwhile, only 3.7. So it's a little bit of a gap separating all the drivers running in the podium places right now. So with the drivers starting to spread out as things stand currently, with the top 12 separated by 20 seconds, our minds start to shift towards what the strategy content may be from this race. These drivers do have a pit stop to contend with. There's a whole lot of stuff that comes into that, trying to manage the pit exit, managing that lap 1, that first lap out of the pits with those colder tires on these race cars is huge, and also just getting into the pits and getting out of it clean is going to be huge if you want to try and run in a good position for this race. So Charles, those pit stops are going to be pretty important for this race. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. The pit exit's pretty straightforward. It comes out right in the exit of turn 1. Obviously, if there's any cars on track, you're going to have to kind of deal with them, but you're kind of offline there. Pit entry is a bear. It is difficult. It's coming after here, as we see, coming up through 14, and basically instead of making that right-hand turn to come around the final 2 corners, you just basically go straight and you aim right at that pit wall, and you got to get your braking right and make a 90-degree right and then a 90-degree left. Once you get in there, it's very tight, so it's going to be real critical to get into pit lane safely and as quickly as you can, and that's going to be the key to it, I think.
This is a very challenging pit exit and entry, sort of similar to Watkins Glen in a way, and we're already seeing drivers do that. That's John Benelid heading his way down pit lane. I think he did not come into the pits earlier, as he was about 20 seconds back of our leader, Lucas Vieira, but it definitely had some damage after that major conk against Ohio earlier on in this race. Trundling his way down into the pits, finally stopped in his box. We'll see how long he's stopped for. He needs to go with an off-the-wall strategy, because as things stood with him out there on track, 8.5 seconds down and away in pit lane. But Benelid was struggling for pace. He just needed to do something different, because with that major incident at the very beginning of this race, Benelid 20 seconds back of our leader Vieira. If he wants any hope of sneaking a top 10, let alone a top 5 or even a podium from this race, he had to go with something entirely different from everyone else.
Yeah, I think it's just necessity. I think my guess is he stayed out there after the incident, so he felt like he could drive the car at a decent enough pace, and he's in that pit window, so he can go out and actually I'm just seeing him coming through Museum Chicane, so I think he feels like he can get to the end from here. So it's just go in. I'm sure he probably took his fast repair, and so now he's going to just try and hold on and see who comes back to him as pit stops go on during the course of the race.
We just got another look, another angle of that big moment heading through turn 1 and 2 at the very start of this race. You got to feel bad for John Benelid, because he started this race off well, finished that sprint in a very good position, and he is one of the drivers running inside the top 5 in that pro category. So not an ideal race for the driver of the number 8 car, my apologies, a Canadian driver. Not ideal so far. We'll see if he can claw up any sort of spots. But I said John Benelid was driving in the number 5 car. He's not, but the man running in P5 is Chris Heide in the 98 car. You can see him with a big slide heading through turn number 13. You don't want to have that happen too much. These drivers are going to be leaning on those tires, because these cars, surprisingly so, the tires are They don't wear too quick. We just saw a race earlier on this afternoon for the Spec Racing for the Weekend Warriors at the Legacy Phoenix Road Course, where the tire management was a huge factor in that race. Overheating as well was going to be a huge factor in that race. Here at the Radical SR10s, it's a little bit different. The tires, even after these 45-minute races, don't have a whole lot of wear on them, so they won't be pitting for tires. However, you don't want to have some big slides like that every single corner, every single lap, every single minute of this 45-minute race. Otherwise, you will be seeing those, well, you will be hearing those tires start to scream out in pain by the time we reach a few laps to go.
Yeah, for sure. And the track is it's not horribly abrasive. You can make the tires go a pretty good distance, and I'm looking at the weather now in sim based on current date. At early morning, 25 Celsius, probably about 80 degrees. Oh, sorry, 93 Fahrenheit is the track temp. So that's about right for May in Birmingham, Alabama. So yeah, hot but not overly so. This track, in the dead of summer will be probably 130. So nice, comfortable conditions for the drivers out there, and the tires should last, I think, for the 45 minutes of the race.
I think these drivers are very happy that this surface. I believe this is the original asphalt of when the track was first built back in the early 2000s. If I'm wrong there, feel free to correct me here, Charles. But still, this track somewhat newer in the world of racing, despite the fact that I think this track is older than myself, but still a nice track, a fun track, and not too hard on the tires, at least here in the sim tire management. A bit of a factor in the IndyCar race here a couple of weeks ago. Ryan Odo has slotted his way back into P at number 2. Nicely played from the American driver. It was a nice battle between himself and Franco Sanchez. We may have to take a look at a replay to see what kind of move Odo pulled off to take a P at number 2 in this race. I mentioned Odo earlier. He is viciously quick. He also doesn't really know when to give up. That man has the mental willpower, possibly of a maniacal crazy person. Franco Sanchez has come into the pits here, so a driver running in P number 3 and running P2 throughout a vast majority of it has come in for a somewhat early stop, and Odo heading into turn number 5 just outbreaks him, has that inside line. They don't make contact heading through that section. A nice clean move from Ryan Odo, so probably the least dramatic bit of his race so far.
Well, he made it look really easy. That is the easiest place to pass on track, as we see Sanchez in the pits now for his mandatory pit stop. But it's still a very difficult pass to make there, because you're cresting a hill right before the braking zone. So getting the braking zone right is not always the easiest thing in the world. And then going through there side by side, getting good exit by both cars. So nice, really nicely done by Odo. Good clean pass. Sanchez says, you know what, I'm going to go in and reset, get some more fuel, get my pit stop out of the way, and just run clean for a few laps and see if I can run a little bit of an undercut on him.
We have to mention that dastardly word, the word undercut, the strategy, so important in these races. 45 minutes, fairly spread out as well, with the top 12 separated by 57.4 seconds as things stand currently. Franco Sanchez in P number 11, 35 seconds back of our leader, Lucas Vieira. We got to see what kind of times Franco Sanchez does, as we see Cedric Oyahan coming in for his pit stop. He came in earlier. I think he tried to repair some of the damage he picked up in that lap 1 turn 2 Shamazel. He came into the pits earlier, is back in the pits once again this time. Needs to fill up on fuel, otherwise he won't be able to make it to the end of this race. Let's see how long he's down pit lane for. It's a little bit slower, it must be said, from the Canadian driver of the number 44 car. Yeah, Sanchez was at a 40.1 and Oyahan at a 42.8. So that is pretty, it's dastardly slow, it must be said, from the driver of the number 44 car. Maybe taking a bit more gas just to be safe than sorry to finish the final 30 minutes of this race incident free.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's better safe than sorry. We think we had a race today where we had a driver run out coming to the checkered flag and just couldn't put up a fight because he didn't have the fuel to do it. So obviously it's very important to make sure that you get the fueling right. And I will say this: Vieira and Odo's last lap were identical down to the hundredth, 118.23. So Odo is trying to make up the stagger, but unable to do so with any great without a lot of, or sorry. Unable to make up the gap as quickly as he would like to.
I think we're going to take a look. We saw a replay there just a few moments ago. Now we're back to live action, and following this man, Rylan Richard, who once again, very similar to what happened in the sprint race, he's running in P3, running essentially in no man's land. Rylan Richard may be the loneliest man on this racetrack right now. Charles Krasik in P number 11 has come into the pits, allowing Franco Sanchez to slot his way back into the top 10. So maybe the early pit stop is the call from tonight's action. I think we're going to take a look at a replay of John Benlid heading his way through the turn 5 hairpin. Is a small little spin coming out of the corner. Yes, it is. Small little pirouette. Nothing too bad.
Nothing too bad.
That's we probably should keep a ticker of how many spins we've had heading through that section. You've mentioned it throughout this broadcast, Charles. Turn 5 is hard. I didn't know about the negative camber coming out of that corner, so I can now use that as an excuse for my many follies and fumbles heading through driving around this track. So yeah, very, very hard corners around this racetrack, but it's also extremely rewarding if you get it right, that plenty of these drivers are doing. Chris Hindy is trying to hold off Reeve, and Fernandez as well, trying to go around the outside of turn number 1. That's bold stuff from Hunter Reeve. Not close enough to get that move done around the outside of turn number 1. That would have been incredibly bold from Hunter Reeve if he tried to get that move done. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's God, turn 1 is just such a, well, they're all tricky. I'm just, we keep saying, how this corner's tricky and this corner is technical, and they're all tricky. It's just a very difficult track, and turn 1 obviously tightening up as you go through the corner with the curb on the inside and the grass on the outside. It's just almost not worth it to even try and make a move going in there unless you can get it cleared on the straightaway. You know, you don't want to try and battle through side by side as we saw at the beginning of the race.
I think these drivers saw that incident at the very beginning, learned their lesson. They're like, yep, we're keeping it clean. To finish first you have to finish, and all those drivers are trying to run by that adage here. Adrian Fernandez hauling his way through turn number 12 and 13. We saw for the last broadcast here of this series a couple weeks ago, Adrian Fernandez is not the kart driver by the same name, the multi-time IndyCar race winner, and oh my god, that was very close to getting into that outside barrier heading through that final left-hand 90-degree corner coming down pit entry there. Adrian Fernandez cutting it very close. We saw this earlier in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors broadcast here on Apex Racing TV earlier on this afternoon as Fernandez overshoots his box a little bit. Is that a small little glitch in our timing screen? Because it says he's now in the lead of the race. So Fernandez, that would be bizarre. Actually, okay, there we go. It refreshed itself. So we can say that Adrian Fernandez briefly led this race. However, it wasn't entirely the case. But trying to think of the other point that I was on. Oh yeah, in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors race that we saw earlier on this afternoon, we saw some drivers jump up positions just by being really aggressive and really bold coming into the pit. So I think at this race with a very tricky pit entry, just having that confidence to cut those corners and go through that pit entry as fast as you can is going to be a game changer here.
Yeah, for sure. And he in his stop time was only a second off of the fastest, which was Sanchez at a 41.1 for Fernandez. So that aggressiveness did pay off, because even with the little reversing motion he had to do, he still had a pretty quick pit time. So had he not, he probably would have been sub 42nd and would have helped him out. But still a pretty good pit stop by Fernandez overall.
That was, if he didn't overshoot his box, that would have been a much quicker run down pit lane. I wonder how that's going to affect the fight that he saw himself involved in with himself, Hunter Reeve, and Chris Heide there earlier on. I believe Chris Heide is still leading it in that AM category, and this was a big snap that he had coming out of that final corner. This is part of the reason why Hunter Reeve was very, very close, got that move done. Heading into turn number 1, nicely played from the driver of the 173 car. Don't see a whole lot of moves heading into turn number 1, so very good stuff from Hunter Reeve, who, as things stand currently, is slotted in P number 4.
Yeah, it's having a great race. The Operation Motorsport logo on the back of the car, I'm very familiar with those guys. And we can make a talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, Hunter's having a good run, running in P4. And should be able to secure that. Looks like he's got some good pace in the car and is able to keep that 2.5 second gap over Heide currently. See if he's able to, now that he's got his pit stop done, if he could actually maybe claw into that gap that he's got to Richard.
Jimbo Pfeiffer in the 00 car has now come down pit lane, and hopefully we won't take offense to this, but Jimbo Pfeiffer sounds like the name of a fake baseball player in like a Japanese video game built in the 1990s. But he's exiting the pits right now, flashing those headlights, and a very bright LED headlights on these race cars. We've seen it all throughout this this night of racing action as well. Some drivers trying to get into each other's heads a little bit by flashing their lights in a battle. So I guess, hey, it's always, I think I mentioned this a lot when I was doing the official broadcast here for the Radicals. Mind games are big as well. Just having the psychological advantage over your competitors is huge when it comes to these races. Lucas Vieira clearly has that, as he's currently leading it by 8 seconds. This man probably with the most boring night than any of us here for this broadcast. He's just been driving off into the distance, minding his own business. The driver of the number 171 car, I wonder if he's yawning at this point. What do you think?
Maybe so. Yeah, he's kind of been pretty lonely, and he's extended his gap over Odo now by another second or so since I last looked over the last 3 or 4 laps. So starting to stretch that gap out. He's been anywhere from 0.2 to a half second faster over the last 3 or 4 laps. So he's doing a great job just maintaining his gap out front, extending when he can, but he's not overdoing it and putting himself in harm's way. But obviously he's got really good pace here. He's done his homework and he's run some really solid race so far.
Lucas Vieira is very quick. He has some lap traffic to contend with in the form of Charles Krasik. A little bit farther up the road, he'll probably try and dispatch of the driver running in P12 in the not too distant future. This man, Rylan Richard, fairly quiet from him as well. It's about, I'm trying to do the math in my head, that would be about 6 seconds between himself and Ryan Odo there. And right behind Rylan Richard, you have to go back 12 seconds to Hunter Reeves. So that is pretty spread out, it must be said. So Rylan Richard, lots of drivers having some quiet evenings here, breaking away, and well, we could call it a Sunday night cruise that some of these drivers are having right now, relaxing, enjoying maybe well, actually we can't say that they'd be drinking a beer. Of course, Apex Racing TV does not condone drinking and driving. Chris Hindy is into the pits right now, so I think, yeah, this is his one and only stop. So we haven't seen the top 7 come down pit lane just yet. They'll probably throw a wrench in the works once they do come down pit lane. However, it's probably going to have to be a monumental screw up for one of the drivers inside the top 3 for them to lose out on their spot.
Yeah, it's going to be probably a speeding penalty on pit road, or Heidi's taking tires. Good call, Josh. You could call that out there. So I'm wondering if that's if he thinks he's not going to be able to make it, or thinks he's going to pick up some extra seconds by adding some fresh rubber on the car. So that's an interesting strategy call.
Well, unless he picks up about, trying to do the math in my head, unless he picks up but 24 seconds, I guess it would be. Chris Hindy is not going to be able to come back from that. That had to have been some sort of mistake. We don't really see drivers pit for tires unless they had some major slide and turn their tires into rectangles. Chris Hindy, 1 minute and 5 seconds down pit lane. That is going to sting with everyone else around him at 40 seconds. And Tyler Vickery, he hasn't taken the victory here. He's out of the race at P14. Spent 0.8 seconds down pit lane before leaving the session here. So Tyler Vickery gets the award for the quickest pit stop that we had here this evening. This man, Lucas Vieira, is getting our award for the quickest driver, and has John Benlid a little bit farther up the road. Some similar looking race cars, at least from my perspective. So I was getting a little bit of it felt like my version of Groundhog Day. I thought Lucas Vieira still hadn't gone by John Krasik. He's put him a lap down, as looking to put John Benlid, who as things stand currently is running in P10, put him a lap down as well. Lucas Vieira dealing with the lap traffic like a treat. He's dealing with the troubles around this track like a treat as well. Continuing to pull away now, 8.8 seconds, now 9 seconds separating himself and Odo, who's come into the pits. So Ryan Odo, the hard charger from this race thus far, has come into the pits along with Krasik. So, what in the world is going on here? These two playing chicken on pit entry. That was very strange between those two. It looked like a Mexican standoff when they hit that pit lane speed limit line. So Ryan Odo, thankfully, he is happy that drivers can ghost in and out of each other coming down the pits. Otherwise, that would have been some damage on the front end and the back end of that Radical SR10. So that was very quick from Krasik. Was that 1.9 seconds stopped in the box? Yes, it was.
Oh, no.
John Krasik coming in for a very, very quick stop. Not sure what happened there. And Odo with a slow one, 14 seconds stopped in the box. That is going to hurt him quite a lot. Sanchez has jumped in. Franco Sanchez has jumped him. He spent 7.5 seconds longer down pit lane compared to Franco Sanchez. So Ryan Odo, we mentioned, the only way that we'd see the top 3 break away and change up is unless some driver made a big mistake. Yeah. I think Ryan Odo just did, and Krasik, I think this may have been the reason why he just came into the pits, went to take that phase repair, and was out fairly quickly. He may have held up Ryan Odo as well.
Yeah, he did.
Coming down pit lane. Oh, yeah, that is... Oh, Ryan Odo. Terrible, terrible luck for the American driver. You can see him furiously flashing his headlights on that Spec Racer Ford. Get out of that. Not the Spec Racer Ford. The Radical SR10s. Get out of the goddamn way. He's probably screaming coming into the pits. But Ryan Odo, that is a huge kick in the shins for him.
It is, and I'm going to throw another one out there. If we're going to watch this again, just stay on. Just talking to Josh here over the air. Just stay on Odo. Ooh, that was almost a snap. He was a good catch by Odo there as he was coming. I think that might have been the reason he came in, was just trying to catch the car, and he was just offline as you see him going through. Odo went up on his jacks, so I think that he at least took a tire, which is another reason his stop was as slow as it was. So I don't know how many of them got replaced. My guess is just by the length of time, it was just a single tire. So it's going to be probably one of the two front tires. And I don't see it now. And maybe that's because he's fueling. There it goes. It's up. So I think the left front got replaced. So I don't know if that was just a missed opportunity or a miss setting on his box there for his pit stop. And once again, it kind of looked like the pit entry was a little bit of survival, was a car just kind of a little bit squirrely coming out of 14 and 15 as he was coming up the hill. And I think it was just basically is either go the pits or go to the wall. And he decided he would go to the pits, but then, the real problem started for him.
I'm curious if that was a conscious strategy call, because figuring out what happened to him at the very start of this race, running wide, heading his way through turn number 1, maybe he had a big lockup on that front left tire and just decided to replace that one. Man, it's hard to say.
Yeah,
we can't get into the driver's mind, but that's either way, no matter how you slice it, not ideal for Ryan Odo. He is going to be on the back foot big time and has a lot of time to gain here as we approach the final 15 minutes of this race. That's Unger out and away, 9.2 seconds stopped. You can see Hindi down there with Hindi there, 32.8 seconds stop. That is, just looking at that is painful to see. So he is taking out of that fight between himself and Reeve. So I think Reeve, who as things stand currently is top of the AM drivers in P3. So Reeve looking like he's on the up and up and has a fairly smooth ride to the checkered flag.
Yeah, it does. And I'm just kind of watching Odo's times versus Vieira. The last lap, Vieira for the last lap just set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:17.8. However, the lap previous to that, Odo and Vieira's laps were within 0.05 of a second of each other. But he was much quicker than Sanchez. So that might be a strategy that he wasn't really expecting, but may work out as he's tracking Sanchez down very, very quickly.
He's slowly reeling him in. You can play the Jaws music. Andy Vogel has now come into the pits from P6 right now, so we'll see how the hard charger from that sprint race exits out. I'll take a look at my live timing screen to see if he's a hard charger yet again. Up one spot from where he started, so not the other big, massive gains that we saw from him earlier on this evening. Adrian Fernandez is actually the biggest position gainer right now, up 6 spots, running in P number 6 right now. Nicely played from the amateur driver. And looking through Hunter Reeve in P3, he's up 4 positions, so nicely played from him. This man, David Unger, is up 4 spots as well. So I think maybe a little bit of the undulation and some drivers getting hit by falling anvils has created a little bit of a shuffled up grid. Some drivers like John Benelid dropping back 6 spots, and meanwhile you've got Fernandez up 6. So some comers and shakers from this race so far.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And obviously Vieira has got a nice gap over Richard, 23 seconds back to P2. And then another 9 seconds back to Reeve in third. Obviously, the top 3 cars still have yet to pit. So Richard and Reeve will both get kind of overtaken by Sanchez and Odo, and should fall in P4 and P5. So that's going to be a good result for those guys. And then it's going to be what Vieira does on his pit stop, and that'll tell you what the gap's going to be back to Sanchez, and it's going to be interesting. I think he's going to have a pretty good gap. It's going to be probably as we see him coming in now, so we'll know here in short order. It's going to be somewhere around, I think, 7 or 8 seconds, but we'll see once he comes out on the track.
So this man, Lucas Vieira, who's led this race in dominant fashion, he's been the standout star from this evening's racing facilities. He's now come in to the pits, so how is it going to shake out for him? For his sakes, I hope he doesn't have the other tires boxed off. Well, for our sakes in the commentary booth, it would be nice to see him have a very slow stop, because then we'd have a real fight on our hands. He's not up on jacks yet. Let's see, he is out and away, 8.7 second stop. Ryland Richard is in the pits as well, so we'll see how things shake out for him. Lucas Vieira, even after negotiating his one and only pit stop, is still exited with the lead. It shows you how big of a gap he had at the very north end of the field. Ryland Richard stopped as well. Is it a slow stop from him? No. Normal time stop there, 8.4 seconds. Out and away he goes. So as things stand currently, Reeve has yet to come into the pits, a leader in the AM category. We'll see him come in very, very soon. And then it's going to be Sanchez and Odo who are going to be in those podium spots. And that is going to be a hard-fought fight. Ryan Odo has closed up that gap quite a lot. They were separated by about 4 or 5 seconds when those pit stops shook out for Ryan Odo, and he had that 14.6 second stop compared to Sanchez's 8 point something. So Odo has reeled him in quite a lot, only separated by a second right now, actually teetering around a half a second now. So Ryan Odo, that is going to be a hard fought fight between the Peruvian driver of Sanchez and the American of Odo.
Yeah, still lots to play for that final position. I'm sorry, for P2 and P3 as Reeve comes into the pits now to make his pit stop, and that'll clear those guys, and so it'll just be Vieira and then Sanchez and Odo, and these guys obviously will battle to the end of the race for this final spot, and we'll see how it all shakes out.
Just have to wait and see what happens in this race. Hunter Reeve has come into the pit, so now pretty much all the drivers have negotiated their one and only pit stop from this. We now have a heads-up fight between now and the checkered flag, which is coming in only actually a little bit over 10 minutes time, so we are in crunch time for this race. What drivers have saved up their tires? What drivers don't have to worry about their equipment? Who's going to push? Who's going to try and take it easy? We'll just have to wait and see. Even in the amateur category, it looks like we have a good fight forming right now. We're riding on board with Adrian Fernandez, negotiating turns 1 and 2. And we saw Hunter Reeve come into the pits not very long ago. Those drivers separated by about a second and a half right now, and those are the two running at the front of the amateur category. So even in that class as well, that is going to be a very heads-up fight between those two. Reeve, Fernandez, very fast race car drivers in their own regard. This may be a little bit of a loaded question here, Charles, but actually no, we'll switch our attention to this battle for P2. Who do you think is going to prevail in this fight between Sanchez and Odo?
I think Odo's got the measure of him. He's made up a lot of ground to get to this position, and whether it was intentional or not, I think that front tire is helping him out. I think he's running, his laps. He's running laps at the leader's pace, and he's been, 2 or 3 tenths faster per lap than Sanchez. I think Odo has got the pace. Now, whether or not he can pass is another story, because obviously it's very difficult to pass here. He's already looking into turn 5, so that'll be the thing, is he's got to find a place where he can make the move, or Sanchez has got to make a mistake. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to get around him. But I think he's got the speed that once he does, I think he can just kind of check out and get away.
Well, Odo did it once before, heading through turn number 5 in the first 15 minutes of this race. We'll see if Ryan Odo can do it once again. They have lap traffic as well, I think, looking farther up the road. Is that John Benelid that they're going to be catching up here? No, that's Charles Krasik in P number 12. So some more lap traffic. It's one piece of lap traffic, so nothing too major for these drivers. However, one car can make a whole lot of difference in that fight. We'll just have to wait and see how things shake up in that fight between Sanchez and Odo. Still very close, separated by about 0.3 of a second right now. Are they going to battle on this lap? Or are they going to try and stay line astern? You don't want to fight too hard, because A, you don't want to crash into your competitor in the final 10 minutes of this race, and B, maybe at a race like this, you don't want to be in a P1 going on to that white flag lap. Actually, I say that there are some good slipstreaming opportunities. However, this track much more challenging compared to ones that we've seen from the season so far. Much slower, it must be said, than Road America that we'll be visiting in about 3 weeks' time. And you can see Sanchez trying to defend from Odo. That gap is still minuscule between those two, closing in to about 0.2 of a second, only a car length separating them, coming out of Museum Corner, going on to the back straightaway. Very soon they'll have to negotiate the quick chicane of turn 10 and 11 there. Now they're on this back straightaway. Will Odo go for a move heading into turn 12? Is Sanchez going to hold him off? Odo negotiating that section there. There's a beautiful camera angle from the back of Franco Sanchez's race car. Very, very close. All these drivers giving it absolutely everything they've got. Ryan Odo proving the point that's made in racing quite a lot. Catching up to a driver is one thing. Passing is an entirely different game. And Sanchez weaving his way down the start-finish straightaway, trying to break that draft. Odo is definitely smelling blood in the water.
Yeah, he is, and I'm sure that when they caught up to Krasik, Odo's thinking, "Oh no, not again." But Krasik did a good job of just getting out of the way and letting these guys battle for the last 6 minutes or so of this race. And we'll say this: the AM battle for that class victory between Reeve and Fernandez. I was just kind of looking at the pit times, pit lane time. 41.08 for Reeve, 41.08 for Fernandez. So dead heat there. So it's just going to be who's going to be faster on the track to see who's going to win this win that class.
It's a total heads-up fight, and I will say the gap hasn't really decreased between Reeve and Fernandez. So Reeve nicely played from him to try and hold on to that gap that he has, managing it beautifully. We'll just have to see if Hunter Reeve can hold on to that P5 spot in the win in the AM category. And right behind them to pick up the pieces is the likes of Pfeiffer and Vogel. They're not very far away from them, so we'll see what happens there. Yeah, Andy Vogel in P number 8, currently 49 seconds back of our leader, Lucas Vieira, who once again has checked that 17.4 seconds away from Franco Sanchez in P number 2. And Ryan Odo briefly popped in and out of existence. I think he should be good on that front there. Still 0.3 of a second separating Odo and Sanchez heading into the final 5 laps of this race. Trying to do the math in my head, about 4 to go here, so not a whole lot of chances to try and overtake. Sanchez and Odo still very close. Odo closing in quite a lot, going side by side, heading into turn number 5. In fact, I was just going to say, how many chances does Odo have? He's trying to make one right now. Is he going to stick it around the outside heading into Museum Corner? I think he'll have to back out of it and allow Sanchez to lead him single file heading through that tight, twisty, and challenging chicane section towards the middle section of this lap. Franco Sanchez still leading them. Odo in P number 3. We'll see. Is it going to come to tears? Is it going to end in a fantastic move? We'll just have to wait and see between Odo and Vieira. Still very close as they head through turn number 14 right now. Odo may try and go for a move heading into the last corner here in just a couple of moments. I'm very akin to what Scott McLaughlin did here a few years ago. Odo nearly trying to give Sanchez a bump and run heading around that final corner. These two are racing incredibly hard right now. They're giving it 110% in the final 4 minutes of this race. I would not be shocked in the slightest if these drivers come to blows. They're racing each other very hard. They're defending very hard. They're on the offense incredibly hard. They're trying to overtake each other. They're getting a leg up on each other, and we'll just have to see if it ends in tears. Odo not close enough to get the move done heading into turn number 5, but he closes up quite a hell of a lot heading in through turn number 5 of the hairpin. Ryan Odo, I think he's in the catbird seat between these two. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. He looks like the laps are just more stable. Just kind of watching him, it's like he's just got better handle on the car. Looks like maybe Sanchez is pushing a lot just to stay out in front, and he's a little ragged in a couple of spots. So I think Odo is now just trying to line him up and trying to get that run out of 2 and 3 to get the run down the straight over the crest at 4. And into 5. I think that is the best passing zone. He tried it once, wasn't close enough, so he's going to be looking again. It's really tight there coming out of 14 and coming into the final corner. So it's just trying to set up this run and see if he can just tighten it up, get within a couple of tenths coming out of 3, and that should give him a good run down that straightaway into the hairpin.
When it comes to pace, these two drivers are fairly evenly matched. I will say Franco Sanchez last time by just set his personal best lap of the race at a 118.38. That is one heck of a time to do it if you're Sanchez trying to find any way in the book to pull over Ryan Odo, who, as you can see from that graphic, has a fastest lap that's 0.3 quicker and was actually slower than Sanchez last time by only 0.2 of a second. They're fairly evenly matched pace-wise. Odo, as I said earlier on in this broadcast, and I'll bring it up again, Odo has willpower. He has the strength and tenacity of a maniacal crazy person, and sometimes on the racetrack he drives like it. He is fighting like hell to move it to P number 2. It may seem like one spot, but here in this series, one position can mean a heck of a lot when you're involved in a fantastic championship fight, as Odo is. Vieira, meanwhile, he's checking out. I think he's going to be taking the white flag very, very soon here. I think he may be on the, actually no, it's not on the white flag, so he's going to be coming to take the white flag next time by. However, Vieira, at this point, he's checked at 19.3 second gap to this man, Franco Sanchez, who only has 0.5 of a second separating himself and Ryan Odo. Odo dropping back a little bit last time by. Once again, Ryan Odo was slower than Franco Sanchez, so I wonder if Odo just overcooked those tires as now feeling the burn, no pun intended, towards the end of this.
Well, no, he got wide out of 13 and got into the grass a little bit, and that caused him that couple of tenths he lost there over the coming in the last little sector of the track. So it's just going to be him gathering it back up and trying to close the gap down, and it's actually grown like to 1.2. So that's it's a little odd there, but we'll watch and see if he can tighten that back up. Looks like it's starting to come back down a little bit, so he's got a little bit of work to do, but he's still got another lap to try and get it done.
He's going to have to kick on the afterburners. He's going to have to kick on the Cuisinarts if he wants to win here at Barber. Well, actually, not win. He'll be able to take second. This man, Lucas Vieira, meanwhile, he's pretty much a surefire lock to win. Just took the white flag there. He has set militarily consistent laps. You can see him at a 118.1 there. And I'm going to take a look at the iRacing live timing just to show you the laps that he's done in this race so far. It has been absurdly consistent for Lucas Vieira, and he's still pulling on the gap between himself and Franco Sanchez, who begins this final lap in P number 2. Odo has closed that gap a little bit, however, 0.8 of a second separating those two, about to head their way into turn number 5 in just a couple of moments time. It was a good punt from my end, but I think it rings true. Odo feeling the burn. He may have overcooked those tires. Big slide there. You can see him with very much neutral steering heading through that section. Had to counter steer a little bit, exiting the turn. Ryan Odo may have overcooked those tires. We'll see if he can have some sort of major turn of pace. A big slide heading through turn number 7. Odo, you can't say that he's not trying, but I just don't think he has the pace in the dying stages of this race. We'll keep an eye to see if anything happens there, but this man, Lucas Vieira, he won last time out at Interlagos, and here in Alabama, sunny Alabama, Lucas Vieira will win here to take the double. Wins in the sprint race, wins in the feature as well in dominating fashion. And then right behind, I say right behind, it's a 20-second gap to these two drivers. Franco Sanchez is going to round his way around the final corner and end up in P number 2. One of the first drivers to come in. That undercut helped him out quite a lot. He finishes ahead of Ryan Odo, who put on a fantastic recovery drive after getting involved in an incident at the very start of the race. For him to end up in P3 is a very commendable drive. That Rylan Richard and Hunter Reeve is about to round his way around the final corner to win in the amateur category. So the driver of the 173 car wins. I think that's his first amateur win of the season as well. So very nicely played from the American. Adrian Fernandez dropped quite a long ways back of Reeves, so the AM fight wasn't as close as we were expecting it to. But man, Charles, that was really the Lucas Vieira show, winning 20.7 seconds over Sanchez at the end of 45 minutes of racing action. That, I think, is probably one of the most dominant drives I've ever seen in these radical races.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the race we had at Interlagos, yeah, that was about as dominant a performance as you're going to see in this series. Vieira just basically took the start of the race, got a good jump in both starts, and just never looked back. Just put the hammer down, and just cruised basically to victory. It was a fantastic drive by Vieira. It was a good battle between Sanchez and Odo there in the second race. Would have been nice to see them a little bit closer together at the end, but hey, still a good job, and a great job by Reeve and Fernandez in the AM class. That was a good battle. Obviously, it looked like Fernandez may have had an issue in the late stages of the race to open that gap up. But otherwise, fantastic drive by everybody. It's obviously, we talked about this is not the easiest track in the world, and but these guys did a really good job of handling it and put on a good show for us.
Lucas Vieira, I want to bring up this point that I was going to mention towards the end of that. In terms of lap time consistency, I'm going to discount the final lap where he just took his foot off the gas and was really relaxing to the checkered flag. Set a 1:19.2 on that last lap. You just look through 1:18.8, 1:18.6, 1:18.3, 1:19.2, 1:18.4, 1:18. Actually, no, I'm looking at Franco Sanchez's lap. Okay, that's the laps that Franco Sanchez set towards the end of that. But Lucas Vieira, his laps were fairly consistent. 1:18.6, 1:18.1, 1:18.3, 1:18.0, 1:17.9, 1:17.9, 1:17.9, 1:18.0. It sounds like I'm repeating myself, but Lucas Vieira was just so dang consistent. That was a masterful drive from the Brazilian driver to end up winning this race by 20 seconds over his adversaries. I think we'll get the results loaded up for you in just a couple of moments' time from this feature race here from the Radical Americas Championship at Barber Motorsports Park. We'll bring that up for you in just a few moments' time here before we wrap things up. Lucas Vieira, dominant, absolutely dominant, 20.7 seconds separating himself and Franco Sanchez. In P number 2, Vieira gets a double here at Barber, then Franco Sanchez in second. As I said, Ryan Odo will round out your podium in third. That's Ryland Richard with a quiet drive. He ends up in P4. Hunter Reeve in fifth, atop of the amateur drivers. That's Adrian Fernandez in sixth. Jimbo Pfeiffer there in P number 7. Andy Vocal in eighth. David Unger, the Australian driver, in ninth. And John Benlid, after that contact early on, fantastic recovery for him to end up in P number 10.
Yeah, Chris Heide in 11th, Charles Krasik in 12th, Cedric Ohayan in 13th. Tyler Vickery left at lap 1, just wasn't comfortable, obviously. And then Matthew Marai, Bruno Abrantes didn't take the start of this race, and so they'll finish up the 16-car field.
So those are the results from this race, and I think we'll fill up the time a little bit because we're just going to see if any drivers come into the interview waiting area to have a quick little chat with us before we wrap things up. I mentioned earlier on this broadcast we have a fantastic schedule of races to look forward to. This being the 5th round of the season at Barber Motorsports Park, we're going to head on over to another fantastic circuit that we find on the IndyCar calendar that holds some great racing week in and week out, year in and year out. That being Road America on June the 2nd. So we have a 3-week break between then and now. That is going to be a very good race. In a couple weeks' time, then Alton Park on June the 23rd. Laguna Seca that we'll be seeing for the Ray Esports Racing League that Charles, Josh, and I cover every single Tuesday night here on Apex Racing TV. Then actually it's Alton Park. My apology. Alton Park is on June the 23rd. I got lost track of where I was on the schedule. Laguna Seca on July 14th. That's a month-long break until we head to Phillip Island on August the 18th. Brands Hatch on September the 8th. Sonoma Raceway on the Cup layout for the second to last round of the season. Then we'll be heading off to Green Hell, that being the Nordschleife, on October the 13th. And we do have a driver waiting in the interview waiting area, that being probably the most... well, not the most boring man, that's rude against him. The driver that had the most boring race, that being Ryland Richard. Charles, would you like to have a chat with this driver who may have fallen asleep at the wheel throughout that?
Sure. Let's talk with Ryland. Ryland, hey, P4 in the feature race. It was a pretty uneventful race for you, and after we got going, it just kind of looked like just everybody disappeared. Did you see anybody while you were out there during the race? After the start, it just seemed like it was the gaps opened up, and you were just kind of by yourself out there running laps. Hello, Rylan.
Uh,
Rylan, can you hear me?
ooh, I think.
Yeah, I think we've got a little technical issue there with Rylan. We'll see if we can get him back.
Technical issues are always not ideal. So, as a broadcaster,
Hey,
no words make me more terrified than technical issues. So we'll give
Yeah.
Rylan
So, hey, while we're
over
filling,
here.
you asked about the track being resurfaced. I will say that after the first couple of years of Indy, they did expand it. They did widen the track. They added an additional lane. So I think there might have been some repaving done at that point in time, obviously.
And I think,
and there we go.
Rylan,
So-
unfortunately, I don't think he was able to fix those technical issues. I saw he briefly muted and unmuted there, so I was hopeful that it got fixed. But Rylan Richard, not able to fix those technical issues. Not ideal. I think. I can't really blame him if he wants to take a nap after that race, though. That was very boring from his perspective. And yeah, I guess don't have any more drivers waiting in the interview waiting area, so I think we'll wrap things up. Charles, you will be part of the next broadcast here for this season, that being on June the 2nd at Road America. So what do you think that race is going to be in a few weeks' time?
Okay, so we're talking about draft tracks. That is probably the ultimate draft track. It's just basically it's a straightaway with a 90-degree corner, another straightaway with a 90-degree corner, a long straightaway with a 90-degree corner, and then you get a little bit of a technical section, but then you've got the carousel and the kink and going into Canada, and then you just start the lap all over again. So it's going to be a fantastic race. These cars, I know that's one of those tracks that everybody kind of circles on the calendar because these cars just make it so much fun to drive there. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think the other one obviously is the Nordschleife at the end of the season. That's one that'll have everybody out. So yeah, so Road America is going to be great. I love Olton Park as well, so that'll be fun also. Obviously quite a difference between Road America and Olton Park. But yeah, it's going to be a fantastic race.
Charles, you haven't seen the Radicals run at Oldham Park. It is a madhouse in those races. Those are probably some of the most exciting Radical races I called in my year doing the officials here on Apex Racing TV. But hey, Charles brought up some great points there. Slipstream Fest is going to be the name of the game at Road America in 3 weeks' time. Gives you more of a reason to subscribe here to Apex Racing TV. Hit that notification bell as well, so you never miss a thing that Apex Racing TV does or uploads. But I think with everything taken care of from this not too exciting meeting at Barber, if I'm being brutally honest. Sorry that I'm kind of trashing on a race at your hometown track, Charles.
No, that was a good race.
That was, well, it was very strategic. I'll definitely leave it at that. So I think from this race from the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship for 2024 at Barber Motorsports Park, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Charles Michelle joining me in the commentary booth, Josh Wilkie doing a fantastic job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. We haven't said that. Well, probably the reason I haven't said that is my mother's been dead for 12 years. I think that'll just about do it for this broadcast. So thank you all so much for watching, and have a great rest of your night.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.